Each artist's work is a reflection of the individual, a personal expression of creative skill and imagination. But are such expressions limited to human works of art? Or are they also displayed in the natural world? We live in a world rich in spectacular colors. Everywhere we look, different shades and hues captivate our eyes. Some are subtle variations. Others are sharp contrasts. Together, they draw our attention to the striking beauty that exists all around us in creation. But where do all these colors come from? The answer has to do with the nature of light and how it interacts with different surfaces. Light usually appears white to our eyes. However, white light can actually be separated into all the different colors of the visible spectrum, each color corresponding to a different wavelength. Most objects contain chemical substances called pigments that absorb certain wavelengths and reflect others. What is reflected back to the eye by each object appears as the wonderful variety of colors that we see. However, among the most exquisite colors displayed in nature are those that come from a phenomenon known as iridescence. These brilliant colors can vary depending on the angle of your view. How are these shimmering colors produced? In most cases, iridescence is caused not by chemical pigments, but by precise structural patterns within the surface of an object. For example, the wings of morpho butterflies are covered in tiny semi-transparent scales. On each scale, we find layers of microscopic, evenly spaced ridges, which in turn have still smaller ridges on their sides. The distance between these tiny ridges is actually smaller than a wavelength of light. They break up the light waves and create an interference pattern. As a result, some colors are canceled out and others are intensified. These intensified light waves are reflected back to our eyes as a dazzling blue. Yes, these brilliant works of art are the result of ingenious and intricate design. Spectacular colors can be found not only in objects around us, but above us as well. As the sun goes down, magnificent sunsets paint the sky with breathtaking colors. What is behind this artistry in the sky? As sunlight travels to the Earth, the light strikes air molecules and dust particles and is diffused or scattered. The extent to which a light wave is scattered, however, depends on its wavelength. Blue light waves have a shorter wavelength and are widely scattered throughout the atmosphere. That's why we see a blue sky when the sun is well above the horizon on a clear day. However, when the sun is near the horizon, the light must travel through more of the atmosphere to reach our eyes. Blue light, with its shorter wavelength, is scattered before it ever reaches us. On the other hand, the longer red and orange light waves can travel farther through the atmosphere and adorn the sky with the golden and crimson colors of the sunset. What a rich diversity of colors have been used to paint our earthly home. When we take time to observe their beauty, we are drawn closer to Jehovah God, the greatest artist. For just as each artist's work is a reflection of the individual, so too the beautiful colors Jehovah has chosen for each of his creations are daily reminders of his deep love for us. Yes, everything he has made pretty in its time. Water. From space, it is our planet's most striking feature. We find water everywhere that we find life. And this is no coincidence, for each drop of water has extraordinary properties that are essential for all living things. For example, North American redwood trees can grow to be over 100 meters tall. Water, carrying nutrients, must travel from the roots all the way up to the highest leaf. How does water overcome gravity to reach these great heights? To help answer this, notice what happens when a narrow glass tube is placed in a dish of water. Water begins to rise inside the tube. What causes this to happen? As we have considered, water is a polar molecule. That is, one side has a negative charge and the other side has a positive charge. As a result, water molecules form what are called hydrogen bonds with other polar molecules, including the glass molecules just above them in the sides of the tube. At the same time, the bonds between the water molecules pull the surface taut and draw up the molecules below, like links in a chain. These same forces, adhesion and cohesion, are at work in trees. Water rises inside the trunk of a tree via tiny capillaries, or tubes. Meanwhile, as water evaporates from the leaves, it creates an upward pull that is transmitted through the chain of water molecules below. Together, these forces lift the water, carrying vital nutrients to each limb, branch, twig, and leaf. All around us, this amazing process is quietly at work in plants, from the smallest wildflower to the tallest tree, which in turn provide food and oxygen for humans and animals. But perhaps our most direct and personal connection to water comes from its role within our own bodies. From the blood that circulates through our veins to the fluid around and inside our cells, water is the perfect medium for life. As a powerful solvent, water breaks down salts, minerals, and other nutrients, carrying these in solution to nourish our cells. As a chemical reactant, it is essential in the digestion of our food. Even proteins, the fundamental building blocks of our cells, have a special relationship with water. To function correctly, a protein must be folded into a specific three-dimensional shape. And this crucial folding process is guided by subtle interactions between the protein and water. Yes, in every way, the properties of water are precisely balanced to support life. Without water, our cells would be as dry and lifeless as a harbor in the middle of a desert. Instead, water energizes our cells, keeping us active, healthy, and alive. What an extraordinary creation water is, and what a unique role it has been given in sustaining all living things on our beautiful planet Earth. On every level, from the tiniest molecules to the vast oceans spanning the globe, water is masterfully interwoven with the fabric of life. It is a powerful and daily testimony to our wise Creator, Jehovah God, the one who made the heaven and the earth and sea and fountains of waters. Creating a set of blueprints for the construction of a house requires that the architect consider each individual detail. But he must also ensure that everything harmonizes with the overall design. What about the design of life? Do we also see evidence of careful planning and an overall harmony between living things? Our world is filled with marvels of creation, each wonderfully unique. Yet, as we have considered, all living organisms have something fundamental in common: our DNA blueprint. From these incredibly tiny molecules come all the complexity and diversity of life. But even beyond the physical appearance, behaviors, abilities, and instincts of individual organisms, DNA spells out the potential for amazing interactions between different creations. The more we observe the natural world around us, the more we begin to see an underlying harmony emerging from the design of life. For example, many flowering plants produce nectar, which serves as a food for insects and other animals. But the benefit is not one-sided. As bees drink nectar from a flower, they're dusted with tiny grains of pollen and carry these to other flowers of the same kind. Many flowering plants and trees depend on this pollination to reproduce. Yes, by wonderful design, bees, plants, animals, and humans all benefit from this relationship. Hidden beneath the soil, we find another beneficial relationship between plants and fungus. Since they are unable to produce their own food, certain fungi infect the roots of plants and absorb carbohydrates from their host. But instead of being harmful, the fungus can actually help the plant. The filaments of the fungus provide a much greater surface area to absorb minerals and water, which are shared with the plant. Additionally, the fungus can extend into soil that is inaccessible to the roots of the plant. With this assistance, the plant is able to take in more nutrients from the soil, grow faster, and better tolerate extreme conditions. Virtually all plants benefit from this type of helpful relationship with fungus. In the depths of the oceans, we find more alliances between different kinds of creatures, some very unexpected. Groups of large fish gather in areas where smaller, cleaner fish assist them by removing dead skin and parasites from the visitors. Under other circumstances, the larger fish might eat the smaller ones. But at these cleaning stations, the large fish allow themselves to be attended to. Most fish avoid the stinging tentacles of the sea anemone, but the clownfish makes a home right in among them. A special coating on its skin protects the clownfish from being stung. In this way, the clownfish is safe from predators. In return, the clownfish may share food with the anemone and provide protection against anemone-eating fish. Elsewhere, a goby fish and a shrimp live together in the shrimp's burrow. To protect its nearly blind host, the goby stands guard and taps the shrimp with its tail to warn of danger. These are just a few examples of the interconnections we see all around us when we look more closely at the natural world. How do these instinctively wise creatures know to form partnerships with others so different from themselves? Somehow, the potential for these relationships is recorded within the DNA of each one. Yes, life is not just a random collection of individual creations, but rather a marvelously orchestrated masterpiece of design. Each living thing plays its part in perfect harmony with others around it, joining together in the magnificent symphony of life. To learn more about creation is to gaze in wonder at design and engineering far superior to anything mankind has devised. It is to catch a glimpse of the mind of the master designer, Jehovah God. You are worthy, Jehovah, to receive the glory and the honor and the power, because you created all things. Every day we see patterns in the world around us. They testify to the careful design and hard work that produced them. But what about the patterns that are not made by man, but appear in the natural world? What do they reveal? Consider the snowflake. These tiny crystals are formed when water vapor in a cloud condenses directly into ice. As the crystals grow, delicate and beautiful patterns emerge. Look more closely at the pattern within a single snowflake. The crystalline arms branch, then branch again and again at increasingly smaller sizes. Mathematicians studying this concept of self-similarity use the term fractal to describe a shape that has a consistent, repeated pattern at multiple scales. Where else can fractal patterns be seen in the natural world? Trees can demonstrate a degree of self-similarity. The trunk splits into limbs, which split into branches, then twigs, and so on. We see a similar type of fractal pattern in the leaves of a fern. A different type of pattern, but one that is also a fractal, can be seen in the shell of the chambered nautilus. As it grows, the nautilus builds new, larger chambers and seals off the older, smaller ones that it no longer needs. The result is a spiral that is fractal in nature, maintaining a similar shape as it increases in size. Natural spiral patterns of this type can be observed in many places, from the cloud formations of a hurricane to tiny shells on the beach, from the arrangement of the stars in a galaxy to the seeds on a sunflower head. What causes these spiral patterns? In the case of the sunflower, it has to do with the specific angle at which new plant growths form. This angle, approximately 137.5 degrees, is sometimes called the golden angle. It results in an ideally compact arrangement with no wasted space and creates distinct spiral patterns. If the sunflower grew not at the golden angle, but at a different angle, for example 140 degrees, we would see radial arms instead, and the seed arrangement would not be as efficient. As we look even closer, we can discern a fascinating mathematical relationship between this golden angle and a series of numbers called the Fibonacci sequence. In this progression, each number is determined by adding the previous two numbers together. Interestingly, these Fibonacci numbers can often be observed in plants. This sunflower has 34 spirals in one direction and 55 going the other way. Both of these numbers are in the Fibonacci sequence. A pineapple will often have 8 or 13 spirals. Flowers with a spiral growth pattern tend to have a Fibonacci number of petals. Why are these numbers significant? As the Fibonacci sequence progresses, the relationship between successive numbers comes closer and closer to defining the exact value of the golden angle. This intriguing mathematical relationship between the golden angle of plant growth and the number of resulting spirals reminds us that the patterns we see in the natural world are not merely accidental. Each one is a reflection of order and careful design. As we take time to examine these patterns more closely, we're filled with a sense of wonder at the workmanship of their designer, Jehovah God. For His invisible qualities are clearly seen from the world's creation onward, because they are perceived by the things made.